9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Well, good morning. Welcome to another edition of Freethought in Florida. Freethought in Florida is a production of the Atheist community of Polk County. I'm Sarah Ray. I'm one of the directors of the ACPC, and I will be your host for this episode of Freethought in Florida. This is Wednesday, November 11th, 2020. I want to thank all of our patrons over at patreon.com/polkatheists. That's a great way to support the atheist community of Polk County and the ongoing production of this show. All of that money goes right back into the ACPC to support all the programs that we're doing and develop future programs. And we have been posting there's some unaired clips that I've been including in the Patreon feed that do not go into the main podcast feed. So you can check that out. Just some little extra scrapings over at patreon.com/polkatheists. And of course, if you're not able to support the show or the ACPC financially, please make sure that you like and subscribe and share out all of the episodes that you enjoy. So today I have another wonderful guest on the show. We're going to be talking to Jessica Toy. Jessica is an executive board member and secretary for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Central Florida chapter. And she's also the chair of the Polk County Out of the Darkness Experience event, which the ACPC is participating in. Jessica, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. And I'm glad that we're able to help bring attention to such an important topic. But before we go down that road, I do want to mention for all of you who are out there watching, we will be discussing a very sensitive topic today. If you're not prepared for that, please hit pause, come back later when you're in the right headspace, or you skip to the next episode. All of that is fine. And if you are in crisis, please call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255. Or you can contact the crisis text line by texting TALK to 741-741. And we'll put this and a handful of resources in the notes for this episode as well. So I want to give folks a little bit about who you are. And normally I start, I would ask by starting, what's your connection to suicide prevention and this issue, but I think I've changed my mind this time. You made a post on Facebook the other day, which shared out this episode. But you also sort of kicked open the door and came out as an atheist.
I did.
So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Thinking about your friends list, was that difficult for you to do? And how have people responded?
It is difficult, especially, so I grew up in Broward County, which to me is a little more diverse than Polk County. I feel like my Broward County friends and family may be a little more understanding. Those of them who didn't know, I was concerned, especially being involved in the AFSP. So a lot of things that I don't share, I share because I don't want anyone to feel alienated by me, and I don't want to be alienated by any of them, because this cause is so important to me that I try to stay very neutral on a lot of things so that I can maintain those connections and continue to work with this diverse group of people. So like, for example, there was someone who works with me in Polk County with the AFSP who I know has very deep religious beliefs, and she actually commented on there like, "I love you, my friend," or something like that. So the people that I know who their faith is very important to them in Central Florida, they have been very supportive. There's definitely been amounts of not support in the past, but that post did not receive any backlash that I know of. So
Good.
Yeah.
I wondered too, because especially being tied to this issue, when you think of, like, we talk ad nauseum about like recovery programs and the 12 steps, and you have to find a higher power and all of that kind of stuff, and secular people tend to, really shy away from that because of that. And there's a entire episode to be had about that too.
Yeah.
But yeah, when faith is often wrapped up in mental health in so many ways, and especially where we are. Yeah, I was just curious. Well, I'm glad it was a positive response. That's good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Did you grow up in a religious home?
So my dad went to Catholic school, but I would say he basically raised me kind of as an atheist. And we don't talk about it too much anymore, but I get the vibe that he may not feel like he's an atheist anymore. And my mom was not extremely religious, but she would kind of go to one church here, one church there, and take us. I did grow up when I would sleep at my grandma's house. I would go to a Catholic church with her in the morning. But I don't feel like I have a lot of negative experiences with the church like I know a lot of atheists do. But I think I just grew up just questioning everything and needing a logical explanation for everything. And I just never got it. Yeah. So I felt agnostic from like middle school onward. And then in high school, I actually would have lunch with a Mormon named Kent. And we would just because I was agnostic, he would kind of question my beliefs, and it actually ended up solidifying my beliefs and making me be like, okay, I'm definitely an atheist now that we've had these conversations.
That's interesting.
So
yeah. Well, I sort of wanted to start with that because I think we just have so much shit that we don't talk about for whatever reason. And as a trans person, more and more every day I try to really live this life authentically. And so whether it's a queer identity or non-religious or a mental health struggle or whatever, we've stigmatized so much as a society. And to be honest, a lot of that comes from religion. So we know that, but now we're having to break these barriers down. And we know that the more people are talking about all of their stuff, the more people will talk about their stuff. And there's that sort of snowball chain reaction effect where it's just getting better for everyone. And I think maybe that's a good lead into the discussion about suicide prevention. And when we say suicide prevention, we're really saying things like mental health care and crisis intervention, right? Things like that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that that I think became clearer in our highly divided political landscape this past few years is that, to me, there just seems to be a lot of people in this country that just don't seem to care about others. Not truly. And they may talk the talk, but when it comes down to it, the action behind it is not there. And I have long said that I want to live in a world where mental health facilities are available, and anyone can go into one of these facilities and say, hey, I need help, and get help, regardless of your ability to pay, your citizenship status, your employment status, whatever, right? Just you can go in and get care. I want to live in that world. And I know that's like one of two steps, right? We have to create that system, but then we also have to destigmatize mental health to make it so that people will walk into those places and ask for help. And I'll fight for that future with everything I've got, but I'll tell you, I've just lost a lot of faith in humanity over the past, 4 years.
Yeah, it's definitely the system itself. It needs a lot of work and improvement, and that sometimes people get Baker acted, and that the financial challenges that come after that compounds their problems. There's definitely a lot that still needs to be done. But a lot of what AFSP is doing is working on, mental health care and how can these inpatient things look different? How can we identify these warning signs? How can we spread the word so that we have more suicide alert helpers in our community, to connect people with help, to see these red flags and, make those connections.
I think that a lot when I think about like our justice system too, right? Somebody gets into some kind of trouble for whatever the cause, and then our system is punitive. It's not rehabilitative. And, and we've seen what that does. We've seen the outcome of that. And it just seems like such a no-brainer to me that if we would just help people, like it's so easy. It's so easy. And we're the richest country on earth. We could do it tomorrow if we just, if the empathy and compassion was there. I think for me, I think that's what I'm missing in my fellow man, I guess. Well, anyway, International Survivors of Suicide Loss Day is Saturday, November 21st, coming up. And I know that you are a loss survivor.
Yes.
I should also mention that you're pretty open about this as well. So I don't think I'm like prying any jars open or anything. But of course, you set the boundaries as much as you're comfortable. Will you tell us about your brother Eric?
Yeah. So my brother Eric was 13 months younger than me. So we're like almost Irish twins. We were very close for a large chunk of our lives. I mean, fought like siblings in the younger years, grew apart a little bit in his later years. He was a insurance adjuster, so he would kind of go to catastrophes, like if there was a tornado or hurricane, and do insurance evaluations. So he kind of turned into a little bit of a nomad towards the end, but he was a super kind guy. He would give you the shirt off of his back. He would give you his last dollar. He was kind, funny, smart. My favorite thing to share about him is how he always went out of his way to make a deeper connection with people. So we would like be out to dinner and he would ask our waitress, like, what's your favorite song that you don't think I've heard? And he would have this whole playlist just from strangers, but like it was more like beyond like hi, how are you doing? Like he just kind of picked up friends wherever he went. But while he was all these amazing things, he also struggled a lot. So he struggled with addiction, especially the last year of his life. He was dealing back and forth with methamphetamine addiction, along with other drugs. And he also struggled with mental illness. When he died, he had been awake for almost a week. He was having hallucinations. And we knew about this, but for some reason, like, we just were not educated enough to be like, hey, we gotta do something here. You know, he may have been experiencing schizophrenia or drug-induced psychosis, not really sure. But on February 9, 2016, 2 days before my 29th birthday, I got a call from a detective in Texas, and he told me that my brother had died by suicide. On top of that, he encouraged, I was the first family contact he was able to make, and he encouraged me to be the one to call my family and tell them. So I called my mom, called my dad, my grandma, my brother's best friend, David, got to listen to all of them react to the news. So I can still hear my mom sobbing in the disbelief from my dad and my grandma, and it was a very traumatic experience. Like every call, I could feel kind of my whole world crashing down a little bit more as I was home alone with my 1.5-year-old, who thankfully stayed pretty glued to the TV while my husband came home from his job an hour away. But from that point forward, I'm kind of a take action, what can I do with this situation, and how can I make sense of it kind of thing, kind of person. So I went back to school, got my bachelor's in psychology, so tried to understand what was going on as much as possible. And then I also got involved with the AFSP. So that has also been a really healing experience. because suicide loss, it's different. I'm not gonna compare types of losses. Every loss is different. I won't say one's worse or easier, but you know, there's a stigma around it. You know, when I shared that my brother died by suicide, I still have people kind of coming out to me, but not to others. So again, the stigma, like I had someone I knew for years who would say, "Oh, my mom died by suicide," but I never would have known. A year before my brother died, I had a friend from high school, and I never knew how he died. But he had very similar struggles with addiction and homelessness for a while. And actually his father just recently donated to my my fundraiser. Even though we're not friends, he like had seen that a friend of my brother's had also donated, and that was kind of my okay. And then I think that that's probably what happened to him. But you just, it's so hard, because I wish everyone would speak out about it, because if we knew that it was so prevalent, I think a lot more would be done. But a lot of people still feel that shame associated with it. A lot of people feel guilt, like this is my fault. What could I have done? I mean, every loss survivor I know, I think, goes through the what could I have done differently? How could I have saved this person? This is at least a little bit my fault. Yeah, but getting involved, like realizing the research that, you know, over 90% of people who die by suicide have a diagnosable mental illness at the time of their death, you know, and knowing things like that, like I tend to look at suicide as preventable the way that heart disease is preventable. You know, you're not going to save every single person from a heart attack, but if you know the signs and you have professionals that are picking up on the signs and treating the heart disease or the mental illness, if you have people around you that notice the signs and are aware of them, like, oh, that's not a good thing, maybe you should go to your doctor, you know, that it can be prevented in that same kind of way.
That's huge. Yeah, so the real work is sort of twofold, right? There's the effort to help people before it gets to that point, right? Before it comes to suicide, but then also we have to help people like you who have lost someone to suicide, help them heal. And so I think, like, I haven't lost anyone to suicide myself, but I can draw on the experiences that I do have. To try to imagine what that must have been like, getting that call and then having to make that same call over and over again. And maybe that goes back to the empathy and compassion thing, but we have all experienced some type of loss that I think we can tap into. Grief is almost universal to the human experience. And so I definitely think that's something that we should all be able to tap into and connect with each other over. Did you seek out like therapy, counseling of some sort to assist you in this too?
So very early on, I did see a social worker for a little bit. It was more like I got it. I spoke a little bit and then we moved on to life issues as opposed to grief issues. But beyond that, so about 6 months after my loss, the Tampa Bay chapter of the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. So I know, like, I'm in Lakeland, so we kind of straddle Orlando and Tampa, even though Lakeland's technically looped into the Central Florida chapter, not the Tampa Bay chapter. But they had a grief expert come and speak at USF, and I went. And the only thing he said that has still stuck with me 4 years later is that the single most helpful thing that he has seen for suicide loss survivors is peer-to-peer support groups. So that's being with people who have experienced similar losses. So I looked up, okay, where is this peer-to-peer support group in Polk County? And Polk County did not have one. Lake County did. I did go to a group in Lake County. It was a closed group, which means it's the same people for, I think, 6 or 8 weeks. And unfortunately, it's just a very small group. It was just me and one other gentleman, and our experiences were pretty opposite. So it was kind of, okay, how can I start a group in Polk County? And American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, they don't particularly sponsor or endorse any groups, but they do host bereavement or suicide bereavement support group facilitator trainings. So that was available, but they want you to be 2 years out or more from your lots before starting a group, because otherwise you're working on your own grief as opposed to helping others with their grief. So I got in the meantime, I got involved also with Good Shepherd Hospice, host free support groups and individual bereavement therapy. And I know Good Shepherd is in the title, but I will tell you they're very good at not bringing religion into it. I mean, if we're in a group and another member brings religion into it, they bring religion into it, but their facilitators absolutely do not bring religion into it at all. So I've volunteered with them for 4 years now with their child and teen support group, and kind of honed my skills. Then I think we are at the 1 year anniversary was October of, they helped me start a suicide specific support group that they host now as well. Wow. So I did go through a training with AFSP through them. But that's just something that I was able to bring to Polk County. That it's been fluctuating, obviously, since COVID. They have Zoom meetings now instead. Actually, it is 2 years. 2 years that the group's been going on. So
I find that that's such a common experience here. And I'm from a very rural place originally. So living in a place where there are not things is normal to me, like having to drive 45 minutes to the nearest city, for example. But it frustrates the hell out of me too, because like Lake County's a haul, depending on where you're going. Lake County's huge, Polk County's huge, depending on which corners you're coming from or going to, or like the lament that created the atheist community of Polk County. We were, driving to Orlando, and forget that. So I think it's great that there are people like you who are stepping up and saying, look, there needs to be something here. I can't possibly be the only one who needs this thing. And so I'm sure that has paid itself off to you time and time again over that time. So the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, let's talk a little bit about the walk. Okay. This is the Out of the Darkness Community Walk, which is an annual fundraising and awareness event. Happens all over the country in various chapters, right? And I think we're pretty familiar with the concept of these walks and how they, how they sort of work. But we're still in the, as you mentioned, we're in the alternate Biff Tannen greatest sports almanac, worst timeline ever. And coronavirus is preventing us from getting together. And so how has that impacted your event this year, for better or worse?
Yeah, so we are now moving into our 6th annual Polk County Out of the Darkness event. I joined the 2nd year, and we had 120 walkers. The 3rd year we had about 300. The 4th year we had about 600. Last year we had 664 walkers and raised $30,000. This year is moving to an online experience. Right now we're only at 69 participants, so that is our lowest so far. And while the funds are great, the funds do allow us to do great things. To me, it's more about bringing more people together. And I understand, like, why am I going to register for this event that, is not so much of an event anymore? We have been fortunate enough that we have one team, Kristen Tenpenny's Ride Into the Light, has raised over $47,000, which is just amazing. Shit. Yeah, I think it's more than any team in the state of Florida has ever raised in a single year. So our walk has raised more funds than ever before. We are now over 52,000 as of this morning. But you know, it looks different. But our mission to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide, it has not changed. We're trying to get creative. We have joined also with the Brevard County Out of the Darkness Walk, and is now the Central Florida Out of the Darkness experience, still separate from Orlando. Their event is in February. Still remains to be seen what will happen with their event, depending on what numbers are doing. But on the day of the walk, we're hoping to be able to allow team captains to join us for an in-person packet pickup, where they'll be able to receive shirts if they haven't already received them, and honor beads. And we also encourage people to walk to fight suicide with friends and family while following CDC guidelines. Anytime, any place across the Central Florida area, or any activity that makes you feel good. So like the large team that I mentioned with the amazing fundraising, I believe is like going to Circle B Bar and is going to do a bike ride in honor of the person who they lost. So
cool.
And we're also going to have a virtual experience, an opening ceremony on Saturday, December 5th. So we will have that you are also going to be a part of, that you recorded a little clip for us too. But yeah, that'll air live Saturday, December 5th at 10 a.m. So we're hoping to, it's trying, the walks are so impactful, because you get there and you look around and you're like, wow, here's 700 people in Polk County who have also been affected by suicide. Like, maybe I'm not so alone. So I hope that we can still convey that message, even if our attendance, the number of attendants are a little low, that, you know, you're not alone. This, even though it's horrible, you know, that other people are affected by this, everyone out there knows someone who has lost someone to suicide, or who has been affected by suicidal ideations or other mental health issues. So
yeah, and I think that just underscores the importance of this so much. When we started out talking about, like, we all have shit and we don't talk about it, and so then we're in a rural area where there's not a lot of, traditional support necessarily all the time. And then for as close-knit as rural communities can be, you still don't know, your neighbor was affected by, like, the things that we have in common that we don't talk about. It's this is another great example of how we get out and break down those barriers. A couple of things that you mentioned in there that I want to come back to. You mentioned honor beads. Talk about that a little more, and what those signify and how that all fits in.
Yeah, so we wear the different color honor beads, and again, it's really helpful at the walks because they represent different things. So I'll go through it. White beads represent loss of a child. Red beads represent loss of a spouse or partner. Gold beads represent the loss of a parent. Orange beads represent the loss of a sibling. Purple represent the loss of a friend or relative. Silver represent the loss of a first responder or military. Green represent a personal struggle or attempt. Teal represents someone supporting someone who struggles or has attempted. And blue represents supporting suicide prevention. So again, events, it has this big impact of so I'm not the only one who has lost a sibling. There's someone else who lost a parent. So it just kind of is a good way to bridge without having to necessarily have a conversation with everyone there, but again, be able to see the kind of the commonalities that we all have. So again, in our opening ceremony, to kind of tie this in, we are going to have an honor bead ceremony that kind of features someone and their story and the color beads that they wear. So again, to try to form those connections, so you can see someone else's story and your bead color still represented in some way.
Yeah. And then the other thing was we're talking about this is the intent of all of this is to raise awareness, but also to fundraise. And so you kind of brushed a few of these earlier, but give us another overview of what are the sort of services and things that that the organization does with these funds throughout the year then and ongoing.
Yeah, so the AFSP's mission, their mission statement is to save lives and bring hope to those affected by suicide. And they kind of have like a four-pronged approach to doing this. So they are the largest private funder of scientific research on mental health and suicide prevention. They focus on educating the public about mental health and suicide prevention. They focus on advocating for public policies and mental health and suicide prevention. And then the fourth one is support survivors of suicide loss and those affected by suicide in our mission. So like, especially thinking of loss survivors, they are much more likely to die by suicide themselves. So including that population in our focus is very important to make sure that they are and I can go into each of those little prongs if you want me to also, if you want more details on any of them.
You're welcome to. Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, so so for research grants, right now their priority areas for 2020 to 2022 is diversity. So they will give research grants. So right now, suicide prevention research related to underrepresented communities, health and mental health disparities and inequities, as well as researchers from underrepresented backgrounds proposing research focused on understanding and preventing suicide. Also, evaluation of technological tools. So they're part of the National Action Alliance for Suicide Prevention, and their priorities are in terms of answering six questions, basically, which is why do people become suicidal? How can we better or optimally detect, predict risk? What interventions are effective? What prevents individuals from engaging in suicidal behavior? What services are most effective for treating the suicidal person and preventing suicidal behavior? Wow, I cannot read. What other types of preventative interventions outside the healthcare systems reduce suicide risk, and what new and existing research infrastructure is needed? So that is their research focus. When it comes to education, there's many programs that we offer that we can bring to the community. We have a Talk Saves Lives program, which is an introduction to suicide prevention. It's community-based presentation that covers the general scope of suicide. So we do online presentations of that. We also do face-to-face when it's not COVID. Right. We have More Than Sad, which has taught over 1 million students and educators how to be smarter about mental health. The Facilitating a Suicide Bereavement Support Group, Mental Health First Aid. Safe Side, which is training for the health community. Signs Matter, which is early detection. Stronger Communities, which is an LGBTQ suicide prevention. It is a full-day conference sponsored by a local chapter intended to increase awareness about LGBTQ suicide risk.
And we have one of the highest rates of any category of people that you can that you can come up with, particularly trans people. It was like 41%, I think, was the last figure I saw. Don't quote me on that, but anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so that's some of the education that we focus on. Advocacy, so we have federal, state, and local policy through the Field Advocate Program. So you can sign up and they'll send you action alerts to send your emails to people in local, state, national government. They also have the Advocacy Forum in Washington, D.C. annually and state capitol days. So I've gotten to go to Washington, D.C. and to Tallahassee and meet with legislators. So like I got to meet with Darren Soto a year and a half ago, And, he sat down with us and shared his experience with a suicide loss. And we shared with him, bills that are important to us. Like, I've advocated in Tallahassee and in Washington, D.C., but things that I remember advocating for is banning conversion therapy,
Yes.
the 3-digit suicide prevention hotline, mental health parity, including PTSD, under coverage for veterans and first responders, things like that. So we've gone with these action items and brought them to the attention of Darren Soto, Gus Bilirakis, who is in the Tampa area. We were meeting with his staff, and he came over and he wanted to hear the stories of the lost survivors and just about the people that we lost, and sat down with us for that part. Rick Scott's staff, much less pleasant. Um, but so that was an amazing experience, though, to be able to help work on legislation also, and just be a part of that process. And then
I feel like that's such low hanging fruit. That's the easy button.
yeah,
We again, the richest nation on earth. We have the funds that we could be putting towards all of the things that you've mentioned already: education
yeah,
and advocacy and research, and we are in some small ways doing that. But it like all other things that I think we advocate for, it comes down to, do we leave that to charity, or
right,
do we enshrine that as a principle of our government, that we care enough about the people who are citizens here to invest the money to do the things that need to be done to address these issues?
yeah.
I think you can see what side I fall down on, but
Yeah. And even, I mean, like in Florida, suicide cost almost $3 billion combined lifetime medical work loss income in 2010, or an average of $1 million per suicide death.
wow.
And I mean, in Florida, 2020, our statistics, on average, one person died by suicide every 2 hours in the state. It's the 8th leading cause of death in Florida, 3rd leading cause for ages 10 to 24, 2nd leading for ages 25 to 35. So it definitely affects
Yeah, and
Florida.
it
It
sure
affects our
seems like
economy too.
the cost
Yeah,
to get in front of that, it would be a whole lot. Take the issue of, like, we care about human life aside.
yeah,
If you're just looking at the ledger sheet, it seems to me like doing that investment on the front end saves money, makes more sense, and you're showing that you value human life. I don't know.
exactly. Yeah.
What do I know? Did you have one more
Yes, and
category? I
then
think, yeah.
so yeah, for loss and healing, the support groups we've already talked about.
Mm-hmm.
International Survivor of Suicide Loss Day. Our Polk County had our first one last year. It was an amazing event.
Nice.
This year, again, COVID. So we are
Mhm.
now combining that across the state on November 21st. So that is always the first Saturday before the Saturday before Thanksgiving, because going into the holidays can be especially difficult for people. So again, just trying to build that community and offer extra support. And we also have a Healing Conversations program, which the Central Florida chapter somewhat recently adapted, maybe in the past year. And actually our coordinator is here in Polk County. But that is where almost immediately or soon following a loss, if someone needs extra support, a loss survivor will meet with them, one-on-one. Again, right now via video chat, but at times it was face-to-face also, just to offer extra additional support, maybe if you're not ready for a support group type setting. So that's another program that we have as well.
Have you noticed that this is another better or worse question? This switching everything to Zoom and online has some advantages, I feel, but then that there's still something missing. by doing all of this remote stuff. Like there's an ease of access component that's a positive,
Yeah.
but
It can be more accessible for some, but also like I know my support group, like we had a lot of older participants who we're not seeing now because of the technology aspect. So there's definitely some pros and some cons. Things can be done in a shorter period of time because you're not driving here or there, but to me the connection is not the same. I don't know if it may ever, with certain adjustments, ever feel the same or not. Yeah, but it's a challenge, especially with this walk. Yeah, because it's how can I create the most meaningful experience for people what via video, via a 30-minute video clip. Yeah.
Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah.
And it seems like, I mean, this is something that organizers all over the country are sort of having to work through and deal with. And I'm sure there's support from the organization as far as,
Yeah.
Here are some ideas and how can we support you and help you make this successful. So that event is December 5th, right? The online event.
The walk.
With the walk.
Or experience.
Yeah. Let's talk about how can people get involved. We'll talk about how people can get involved, but with the walk. But if people are wanting to get involved with the chapter or find a chapter in their own area or seek out support, what's the best way for them to do that?
Okay, so AFSP.org will have all of that, in different little tabs. So AFSP.org will have resources, warning signs, what to do if someone is struggling, which we can still talk about if that's something you want to do. But if anyone needs to reference back, the website is filled with information, research grants, clips as a result of video clips of results of our research and what we're learning. You can go to afsp.org/chapters to find your local chapter. Our Central Florida chapter would be afsp.org/CFL. So that will bring you to the Central Florida chapter page where you can sign up to volunteer and things like that, and find out more about our events. So that would be there. Did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, that's good. So I want to talk a little bit about what the ACPC is doing for this year's walk. We set up a team for the walk, and any of you who are watching, we'd love for you to join us. If you're local, join our team. If you're not, find an event near you, join a team. Just get involved, right? But for the atheist community of Polk County team, if you go to, we created a special link. If you go to polkatheists.org/AFSP2020, you can find the link to make a donation. You can find the link to join our team. And then there's a link to log miles too, and I'll get to that in a second. But since we can't get together and do a walk, what we've done for the ACPC for our team is put up a $500 challenge, and it works like this: polkatheists.org/AFSP2020 and join our team. And then starting this Sunday, November 15th, through Saturday, November 28th, we're going to ask our team members to log the miles that you walk, jog, or run. At that link on the website, you can log your hours each day. And then the ACPC is going to match dollar for mile up to $500. So for every mile we walk as a team, we're going to make that donation matching. So it really doesn't get a whole lot easier than that, I don't think. We just recently bought a used treadmill, and so because I'm trying to get healthier and lose a little weight, so I'm ready to go. And we have some runners in our group, in our community, so I would not be surprised to see some we'll blow past that easily. But again, all of that info is at polkatheists.org/AFSP2020. And then, of course, if you go there, you can get to AFSP.org from there as well. But If you're not in the area, you're looking for something closer to home, please look out and see if you can get involved. So that's what we're doing as a team, and I'm really excited to see how that's gonna play out. And maybe I'll even do something for, like, I'll have to take myself out of the running, but maybe we'll figure out something fun to do for the person who does the most miles or something. I don't know. We'll have to see.
Yeah, I love that you guys are doing that, though. That's like the community building that, we're searching for. And I love that you got, even though we can't all do it together,
Yeah.
we're still doing it together. So I love that you guys are doing that. That's great.
Yeah, that really came from, like, thinking through that, like, okay, well, why am I going to join, right? As average citizen out there that may support the cause but not have a personal pressure to do so. What is it that's going to get me to go if we're not going to be able to go? Like we do Relay for Life. I've done Race for the Cure. I've done there's all of these different sort of events that are like this that's really a big benefit of it, is being able to get together. And so then if I'm if I'm not doing something, what am I doing? And so we just tried to make it a little fun, and we'll have a little competition out of it, and put up some matching money and make it a whole thing. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I think it'll be it's a great way to for in our organization to raise awareness with members of the ACPC who may not have. I didn't know this was a thing had I not seen your posts. So it's grassroots. It's really about getting that message out there, and I think this is a great way to do that all the way around. So let's do this. I'll give you the last word. If there's anything that we didn't really cover, or anything you want to make sure that we get out there.
Yeah, while I have an audience, I would just like to quickly run through warning signs and what to do if you think someone is possibly dealing with suicidal thoughts. It's kind of again, this is all on afsp.org if anyone needs to reference back to it, but just things to be aware of: behavior, withdrawing from activities, looking for ways to kill themselves, such as searching online for materials or means, acting recklessly, increased use of drugs and alcohol use, isolating from family and friends, visiting or calling people to say goodbye, sleeping too much or too little, giving away prized possessions, aggression, having moods of depression, rage, humiliation, anxiety, irritability, loss of interest, or saying things like they're experiencing unbearable pain, feeling like a burden to others, feeling trapped, or like they have no reason to live. And if you think that someone might be considering suicide, I would encourage you to talk to them in private, listen to their story, tell them that you care about them. But if you're really feeling like they're suicidal, the research shows that you should ask them directly if they're thinking about suicide. So it can be a difficult conversation to have, and I would encourage you to be prepared for the answer. But you're not going to put into someone's head suicide. There's a lot of people that think if they bring it up, it's going to put the idea in someone's head, and either it's there or it's not there. So asking directly, like, hey, you've seemed really down lately, and you're saying things like you feel like a burden. And sometimes when people are doing that, they're thinking of suicide. Are you thinking about suicide? And to ask directly really can open up the conversation if they are, or they can tell you, no, I'm not, it's not that serious. And if they are thinking about suicide, encourage them to seek treatment or contact their doctor or therapist. Avoid debating the value of life or minimizing their problems or giving advice. Take the person seriously, stay with them, help them remove lethal means. So you can ask, like, do you have a plan? If someone's, oh yeah, I have this gun, then you can help remove those means in a safe way, depending on the situation. And then call you can call also the suicide prevention hotline or text the text line as someone trying to help. So I think that that's something that other people don't maybe not know either.
No.
Like you don't have to convince that person in their crisis to pick up the phone. You can pick up the phone and call, and they can help you also. So you can say, hey, I have a friend going through this. What do I do? And they can talk you through that situation also. And you can also escort them to mental health services or an emergency room if necessary. So
That's
really,
huge.
yeah,
Because you're right. No, I can't tell you. Um, on a hand, I could count. But I've had friends before who, will text you, and after a while, there's a pattern. Sometimes it
yeah,
seems like it's okay. Here we go again.
yeah,
I don't know that I'm describing the situation well, but my fear is that, you know, with the first 2 or 3 times that someone says, this is how I'm feeling, and and you take it super seriously the first time, and oh, let me help you, let's do these things, um and then it comes back, and I feel like over time a person in the friend position can get to a point where you just don't believe it anymore,
yeah,
that you talk about this all the time, this isn't real, you're not really going to do it, that sort of thing.
yeah,
um but when those text messages come in, I I don't think people know what to do. You're
yeah,
absolutely right. I think, what do you do, and especially when it's on the phone and you're who knows how many states away from this person,
yeah,
maybe, or whatever. And so knowing that that you too can access this for help in supporting a person who you're talking to, that's huge.
yeah, yeah. So I would encourage you to take it seriously every time, because in working with support groups and people who maybe eventually did get tired of hearing it from
Hmm.
one individual, they're left with a lot of regret.
Yeah.
And if you need to find a way to pass it off to a mental health professional. Like, it's okay if you're not a mental health professional and if you don't know
Right.
all of the answers. The main goal would be to just connect them with a mental health professional eventually. You're not
Hmm.
gonna
Yeah.
jump straight to it necessarily, but the main goal is to know that you don't have all of the answers, and but that you can help in some way. Like, psychologytoday.com is a great resource just to use as a search engine. You can search for what people are suicidal thoughts, and LGBT community
Hmm.
friendly, and things like that, what insurance someone has. And I know, like, from experience, people who are having these suicidal thoughts, that it's just exhausting to try to come up with a professional. So even just
Yeah.
taking 20 minutes of your time, if you're in a better mental health state, to help them connect with someone can be life-saving also. I've seen it say, I've connected people and seen it save lives with just
Wow.
20 minutes of your time, just to connect them with a professional, knowing that even though I have a bachelor's in psychology, I am not a mental health professional still. So yeah.
Yet? Are you going down that road, maybe?
I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
Can we push a little?
I would love to. We'll stick with teaching for now.
Okay.
It was it was where can I make a big impact still with my bachelor's
Hmm.
degree and not more education, and hopefully teaching is that for a little bit at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that is all great information. And I'm really glad that you brought up the support for someone who is supporting. I think that's a piece that I didn't think about. So, I think that's wonderful. And I think we've pretty well covered it. I would absolutely love to have you on again and talk about other topics and things that are going on. Um, there's certainly a large number of things to cover. I would love to talk about some education things sometime, maybe. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to see how how education changes over the next several months.
Yeah, couple months.
Hopefully things will be getting a little better on that front.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Well, Jessica Toy, Executive Board Member and Secretary for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's Central Florida chapter and Chair of the Polk County Out of the Darkness Experience. Thank you so much for joining us today and for the work that you're doing in this super important topic.
Thank you so much for having me and allowing me to spread the message. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime. All right. So we're going to wrap the show here. Once again, if you are in crisis or supporting someone in crisis, call the National Suicide Prevention Hotline at 1-800-273-TALK, 1-800-273-8255, or contact the crisis text line by texting TALK to 741-741. And we'll have more resources in the show notes. I'm thinking things like the Trans Lifeline, which is a peer support line staffed by trans people for trans people. Recovering from Religion has a lot of great peer support resources. There's a lot of ways to reach out and get help. And so if you want even more resources, get involved or get help, go to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention's website at afsp.org. That's going to do it for this episode of Freethought in Florida. Freethought in Florida is available on YouTube, Facebook, most podcast players. You can just search for the show in your favorite app. Or you can go to our website and find all of the subscribe links there as well. And we'd invite you to like, subscribe, and share out the episodes and help us reach a broader audience. As always, you can find out all about the ACPC or make a donation at polkatheists.org and follow at polkatheists on all the social media. And of course, remember the 3 most important things. Don't touch anything, wash your hands, wear your mask. As always, be safe, and we'll see you on the next Freethought in Florida.